to know the people that help grow it. They want to know where it comes from. I'd rather have it come from here than Mexico. So when you're asking for money, asking like, I'd be an idiot if I didn't give you the money. You know, how could you not want to do this? And I mean that seriously, because a lot of people do not know what's involved in doing farming and agriculture. And there's a lot of different things now with agriculture that's going on. You have the agritourism. When I went out and saw you guys, I can't remember who it was, somebody wanted to be a teacher of science. And that's what the state knows and needs. And Senator Roraback will tell you, you have some of the best areas out in the Northwest, anywhere in the state. Anywhere.
You guys been to Arethusa Farm?
Nope.
I'm going to invite Representative Betts to come to Arethusa Farm and see dairy cows that are worth $2 million a piece. They are the best breeding stock in the world, not just in the nation, and they are treated better than most of us. They live good lives, but we have an amazing, we have a lot of locally grown resources. They now make milk ice cream yogurt, which is sold at a specialty store in Bantam, and they make pumpkin ice cream with graham cracker crumbs, which is out of this world. So it's nice that you guys are here. Do you want to come see? Are you guys on a schedule, or you? I don't want to interrupt the representative.
They didn't want to go into the press.
You didn't want to go into the press conference? Just part of it.
We were going to introduce you. No, but
we could go in if you want.
Yeah, I mean, if you have time, I'm just be interested.
Why not?
I think we have. Let's see. We have an 11:30.
Yeah.
We have an 11:30 appointment, so I don't know.
So you have a few minutes. Now, why would this is about gas? Okay, why would this be of any interest to you at all? That's right. That's one part of it. But let's say you don't have that. Let's say you're going to be driving around in a car.
Commuting for college, your agricultural job, getting to your...
Big money. Do you know we're the highest in the country in terms of gas? Do you know why? Anybody have a guess? We put a lot of taxes on the gas. And that's what distinguishes us from a lot of the other countries. So in this particular one we're talking about, the higher the price of gas goes up, the more money the state gets. We all have to pay for it. Okay? And that really hurts, particularly at your age, right? It really hurts because you really need your vehicles to get around. Okay? And it also, since you're in farming, what do you use for equipment?
Diesel.
Better fueled by diesel.
And believe me, if you fill up for your tractor,
Nice to see you guys. See you back in Lakeshore. Come on in and check out the event if you want to see. You can see what you're going to see on TV tonight early. That's right.
Over the last 4 or 5 years, we have tried on 17 occasions to cap the gas tax and give relief at the gas pump. And it has all been met with varying reaction, but all negative. And it was, as I said, I admired the Democrats the other day for admitting they were wrong and changing their mind. And I think we have to realize, you know, today I pulled up to the Capitol and that yellow light that says you're out of gas or low on gas lit up. And as soon as I see it, I know that means $70 every time I fill up my tank. I don't have an SUV, I have a Toyota Avalon with 223,000 miles on it. And every time I fill it up, it costs $70, at least now. It'll probably go higher. So people, and I do that twice a week, and there are a lot of people out there that are hurting from so many ways, that the cost of everything is going up. And just to get to work or get to doctor's appointments or travel around this state to live their lives, they are incurring enormous costs just to fill up their gas tank. In fact, if you look at the difference in Connecticut, let me point to the chart, excuse me gentlemen, right behind here. The total state taxes per gallon in Connecticut are 49 cents as we speak right now. 49 cents, higher than New Jersey, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, Rhode Island, and New York.
I gotta get over here.
We are paying 49 cents more a gallon. If you look at who's truly profiting from these gas prices, I'll point your attention to the chart over here to my left. Between federal excise tax, transportation from port to pump, credit card companies charged to the dealer, and dealer markup, all of those combined do not equal the amount of money that the state of Connecticut benefits from all taxes, including this hidden tax. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, if you first don't succeed, try again. And we are thrilled that we're able to be here to say, thank you, Democrats, we will join you.
It would be a lot more. I'm not saying that's what they ought to do, but I'm saying if they do drag their feet and don't get to this till the end of the session, and the price has gone up that much, and it seems to be trending that way, it would look good.
I think, Mark, I think the longer they wait, the more taxes people in the state of Connecticut are going to have to pay. If they can claim, let me be very clear, if they can claim that the zoning of a solid waste facility in Milford, an issue that's been around since a court case in 2010 and prior to that, is an emergency for the state legislature, and they're unwilling to say that giving people relief on gas taxes is an equal emergency, then shame on them. I think they want to wait longer so they can continue to reap the benefits of higher taxes on the people of the state of Connecticut, and we're saying it's been going on for too long. Stop it now.
Mark, whether it's 2 cents or 10 cents, I'll tell you what, you know, people out there are tired of people in here playing this political game, and when's it the right time, etc. Do it now. We have control over one thing. We don't have control over the external forces that cause gas prices to go up or down. We have control over the taxes that we assess on on gasoline. Let's do it now. To hell with the politics of it. Let's give relief where it belongs. These people have had it with politics. They don't give a damn about it. They want relief. We're in a position to do it. Let's do it now.
Good job.
Senator McLaughlin, I was wondering, have you had a chance to speak with people in your district, gas station owners in particular, that they've been crossing over the border to Massachusetts at all? And that, is there any Republican plan to bring the gas tax down to at least even price with Massachusetts?
My border's with New York State. There are people that cross the border because the tax is lower, the cost of gasoline is lower. But the gas station owners in Western Connecticut jumped on board with this petition idea really with great gusto over the last 10 days. We don't have a count. We don't have anywhere near as many signatures, I think, that Senator Suzio's put together. But the folks in Western Connecticut are very upset about this, knowing that, that we have the highest taxes in the country, and they would like to see, as soon as possible, this legislature roll back these taxes.
Is there any plans, though, to actually bring the price down to that equivalent to at least Massachusetts, so our consumers stop going to Massachusetts to buy their gas?
We're going to get the Democrats, hopefully as soon as possible, through emergency certification to cap the gross receipts tax. We're going to get that relief for people right now, and then we're going to continue, as we have had, to fight for tax relief for the people of the state of Connecticut. Keith, did you have a question?
Yeah, can I ask both you and Larry? We know the big problem with this tax is, since 2005, more than half the money from this tax isn't even spent on transportation. It props up the rest of the budget. The governor needs the tax increase 15 months from now because his budget at that point, his budget proposal is not balanced. If you really want to have a permanent cap, are you willing to propose spending cuts to replace the revenue?
I mean, first of all, the governor's got a bigger problem with his budget. You know, in 2014, he's over $1 billion over the state spending cap. We have proposed since 2007 balanced budgets vetted by the Office of Fiscal Analysis that have reduced expenditure levels and spent less than either the governors or Democrats have proposed. So the answer to your question is, are we willing to propose the necessary spending cuts to give people tax relief? Yes. We've done it before, and we will continue to do it.
And Keith, if this is any indication about, if first you don't succeed, as John indicated, every single year since 2007, we put forth a fully vetted budget that spent less money. That is the problem. You won't.
First, let me speak to House Bill 5538. As many of you know, the legislature wisely, several years ago, passed a bill exempting from the imposition of the property tax devices used for alternative energy. So if someone puts a solar panel on their house, we don't allow the tax assessor to impose personal property tax on that solar panel. Similarly, if someone wanted to put a windmill in their backyard to power just their domestic needs or to sell for domestic use, we say we're not going to impose a property tax on that. And it makes sense because we don't impose a property tax when people get electricity off the grid. Why would we want to impose a property tax on devices that are used as alternate ways to get energy? Where we misfired a couple of years ago was by limiting this to only residences. This bill, House Bill 5538, would say to a Connecticut business which wishes to do the right thing and install solar panels either to generate electricity or to heat its hot water, or that might want to use a small-scale wind generation device to provide power to the facility, we ought to offer them the same exemption from the property tax that the residential consumer has with respect to their home. If we want to provide incentives for businesses to convert to green energy, I think it only makes sense that we say to municipalities, you shouldn't tax people for doing the right thing. So I hope this committee will give that idea favorable consideration. I'm grateful that you have raised the bill to do it. I know several businesses in my district, the tipping point, when they do an analysis of should they put up a windmill or should they do solar panels, when they add the property tax to the calculation that they're going to have to pay, new property tax that they wouldn't otherwise have to pay, that can, the decision whether or not to convert to a green technology can hang in the balance depending on whether or not they're going to be looking at a property tax bill going forward. So thank you for that bill. The other bill is modeled after, it's House Bill 5537, modeled after a New Hampshire proposal which allows towns to extend favorable property tax treatment to people who are willing to preserve barns and other agricultural structures. Connecticut has a rich agricultural history. Our barns represent a unique and valuable part of our landscape and of who we are. And if a municipality wanted to reward people who promise not to tear down their barns or who choose to rehabilitate their barns, I think we would be helping to retain and shine a light on the fabric of many of our towns where the agricultural heritage remains a proud part of who we are. Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate your attention. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have with respect to either of these proposals.
Questions, Senator Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Representative.
Just on the historic barn proposed bill, I haven't taken a full look at it yet, but could you explain to me a little bit more in detail how that would work? Would you have to have the barn in this program for a certain period of time, or how does it actually work if they were to say, I want to be exempted, then change to some other type of structure?
Well, I think my proposal is to give the towns wide latitude in extending relief of either large relief or small relief. But the way it works in New Hampshire is property owners say, I'm putting an easement on my barn. I promise not to tear it down for 10 years. And if I promise to keep my barn for 10 years and hopefully fix it up, then the town says, you know what, we'll reduce your property tax on that barn by, pick a number, 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%. Each town would have the latitude to essentially give a tip of the hat to people that are willing to save their barns, hold on to their barns, and improve their barns. I mean, right now, if somebody improves a barn, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because by improving the barn, they're driving up their property tax rates. And if we think it's of value to the people of Connecticut to have incentives to preserve what are clearly, there's very few towns in Connecticut that don't have signature barns that are part of our landscape, part of who we are. And if municipal leaders want to reward property owners who protect those barns, I think we ought to give them the power to do so.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to actually help these individuals who own the barns, because you're right, they are part of our landscape in Connecticut, and you drive through any of the various towns in the country here, and it's a wonderful sight. It makes you feel a little bit at peace, and just to know that we have this beautiful surrounding around us. Tell me though about is it actually an easement that gets filed on the land records, or is it just some type of restriction that's put there that they have to keep it as a barn for 10 years?
Well, it's a preservation easement, and the preservation easement commits them to retain the structure in its current configuration or to improve the structure. And if they choose to break that easement, there's a substantial penalty, as there should be, not unlike 490. I don't know whether this hearing is on CTN or not, but if it is, I want to give a shout out. Even if it isn't, I want to give a shout out to the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation that has been going through a very extensive inventory creation of what is left of Connecticut's barns. They have painstakingly gone throughout the state of Connecticut, town by town, and documented where our barns are, how old they are, photographed them. So as time goes on, remember that winter we had last winter, we lost lots and lots of barns, the weight of the snow. And when they disappear into a pile of rubble, they're gone forever. And obviously this bill is intended to slow the pace of the disappearance of these signature structures from our landscape.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Gentile.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. It's still morning, Senator Roraback. Just for purposes of legislative intent on the proposal that's before us, I just want to make certain that this is enabling legislation and it would be up to the local legislative body.
I am very happy to answer that question, Representative Gentile, because I represent 15 communities, which is more communities than any other member of the General Assembly. And I learned long ago that we have no business telling municipalities that they have to do something. I think we're much better partners with municipalities when we say, here's the power to do something. If it fits in your community, have at it. If it doesn't fit, we're not going to presume to know what's best for my town or your town. Those decisions are best made by our local elected officials.
Thank you for that clarification.
It talks about preserving historic barns. Do you have, I realize that each town, from what you have said, would be able to set up their own set of regulations. Well, what do you feel classifies a barn as historic? I'm looking at the hundreds of tobacco barns that we have in town, all 75 years old or so. What makes one of them historic or not historic?
Well, I think the question that your community might wish to ask itself, Representative Amon, is the tobacco barns, many of them I think are still put to active use. They're still being used for commercial purposes, and they're a source of revenue generation for the farmers. In other places in Connecticut, barns are no longer, in many circumstances, no longer being used for agricultural purposes. They're just kind of a structure that's associated with a residence, and people are paying taxes on it but not deriving any income from it. So I guess it's in the eye of the beholder to answer your question. Each community would have to decide for themselves which structures they believe should benefit from this offer of help, and I would certainly defer to their judgment in terms of what's historic, because I don't think one size fits all necessarily when it comes to each community in the state of Connecticut.
So, to your knowledge, there's no set of guidelines that have come out from as to what becomes a historic barn, such as the group you were talking about that's been going around photographing them. Do they have a criteria of what they look at before photographing a barn?
I think it's done on a town-by-town basis. I don't know the answer to that question. What I will get for you, Representative Amon, is the state of New Hampshire has this program in effect, and I'll see if they have any guidelines to assist municipalities in making that determination, and I'll get a copy to you and other members of the committee.
I think it would be helpful to have that, whether we put it in the legislation or if it's just available that when assessors call up and go, what are you talking about, there's something we can send them back right away that says, these are some guidelines.
And I represent 15 assessors too, so I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
I would think you'd want to get those 15 phone calls and deal with each one individually.
They are all, I'm always happy to hear from them. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Fazano.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Roraback. How are you today?
I'm well, Senator. Thank you. How about you?
Very good. I want to ask you a question. With respect to this barn, did we pass a bill? Was there a bar bill last year, or was it just a stone wall one last year?
I think it was just a stone wall one, but I'm not sure that it passed both chambers, Senator.
Right.
But the same idea is we have features of our landscape that we want, many towns wish to preserve, and we want to give them the power to help preserve if they want.
So it's the same concept that you have out there.
Exactly.
The other question I have for you in light of what Representative England said on the historic, are there barns that typically get historic recognition after so many years, or for a style or something? Is there some criteria out there for which they could also grab historic structure status?
Well, I think, like so many other things in life, only when we start to lose things are we mindful of what it is that we're losing or have lost. There are a number of barns in Connecticut which have been placed on the Federal Register, the National Register of Historic Buildings, and I think of the one in Woodbridge on Route 69 when you're driving south, with that yellow barn on the right with a beautiful roof. We still have left a number of barns which define so many of our communities, and I, for one, think local people might well want to encourage their preservation, and that's what this bill is intended to do.
And I think that's a good point. And when you go through Woodbridge in particular, because my parents are, that you see a lot of these old barns that are falling apart that would be beautiful to preserve and keep, but economically there's an issue there, and I think that will help solve some of those problems. Thank you, Senator Roraback.
Thank you, Senator Donner.
Other questions? Representative Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. We're still in the morning hours. I'm kind of interested, because I know there's a huge interest among architects and designers in utilizing barns in new construction, and I also know I spent a fair amount of time on the West Coast doing my other job out there, and I see a lot of LA homes with, I've been told, Montana barns in them, that they've actually totally done interiors by tearing down barns in Montana. So I was sort of trying to crunch the numbers and figure out what is a barn worth, and why do most Connecticut barns go away when they do?
Well, I certainly invite you out to Litchfield County. We have some amazing homes which have been, barns which were converted to homes, and this bill is not intended to extend relief to people that are using barns as their own residences. I don't think that would be fair to other people. But certainly barns have differing value depending on their age, their condition, and the problem is that we're imposing a property tax on these structures, and so when people are looking at them and say, do I keep it or do I let it go, part of their thinking is, you know what, if I let it go, I won't have to pay the tax on that thing anymore. I don't think that that's what we as a state want. I think as a state we would like for people to try to preserve their barns, to hold on to them, to improve them, and this bill is intended to incentivize them to do that.
Okay, so you seem to be saying that they go away because of disrepair, or it's not worth it, it's not worth the property taxes. It's not that they're selling them, that there's a market for barns.
No, not independent. Well, that does, I think that's less of that's less common that people are getting chestnut beams, or certainly there is value to some of these structures, but in the main, I think more of them are being lost to neglect than lost to being sold for salvage material.
Thank you for your testimony, and I spend a lot of time in Litchfield County, and you're absolutely right, it's gorgeous.
And I hope you spend a lot of money when you're out there.
Unfortunately, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? I do have a quick one and a comment. I live in Manchester, and we don't think of bonds in Manchester, but there are several, and in fact, recent grants awarded to Bolton, Glastonbury for preservation of bonds. And I have talked with people who have bonds that we can define as dilapidated because of the property taxes. So why should I fix it up? You're just going to get taxed taxed on it. So it clearly makes sense. The question involves the other bill, extending to the business community some of the incentives for solar panels and tax relief. What about the large corporations? Is there anywhere we cut this off? I mean, if a large Walmart or Walgreens distribution center comes in and does all panels, is there any cutoff there?
Well, the way I look at it, Senator, is that the town where the Walmart distribution center is located isn't, when they get their electricity from a line coming from CLMP, the town's not collecting a property tax on that line, or at least they're not collecting it from Walmart, they may be collecting it from CLMP. So if the distribution center chooses to invest $1 million in solar panels to power, give them electricity, the town's not out any tax revenue by virtue of them doing that, because it's not like you're losing something, you're not trading anything, it's found money for a town. And the way I look at it is, I think that we as a society are going to benefit in a lot of ways if we get more and more people off the grid generating electricity independent from the distribution system. And if we want people to invest in these green technologies, because if the Walmart distribution center is getting its electricity from the sun, that's one less power plant we have to build, and we're going to save money as a society in other ways. If it's not, and if it's found money to the town, and if the Walmart people are saying, you know what, we would put those solar panels there, but we're going to get whacked with a property tax, so instead we're just going to continue buying our electricity from CLMP, I would like to have them make that decision in favor of converting to a green energy form rather than staying on the grid because of the property tax component.
And it reduces the stress on the grid.
Yeah.
Right. All right, thank you. Appreciate your testimony.
I appreciate all of your time and your attention. Thank you. I've always wanted to be on this committee and never have. Thank you.
You can visit anytime.